Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Dr. D Part 3. This is the story of Christopher Duntsch. When we last left off, Christopher Duntsch had started working at Baylor Plano, and he had began working as a neurosurgeon because, as I've said before, he found it to be a lucrative business. But we would soon find out that he would botch a lot of surgeries. And after he would botch the surgery of longtime friend Jerry Summers, Baylor Plano would actually restrict Christopher Duntsch to only doing minor surgeries. There he would actually operate on Kelly Martin. Kelly Martin would go into a simple procedure, but he would botch it so badly that unfortunately Kelly Summers would eventually bleed to death. They would say that during the surgery that he would completely ignore clear signs of very serious bleeding, and that she would bleed out so badly that they would actually have to take towels and actually soak up all the blood that was on the floor. They would even say that the blue blanket that they put on patients during surgery was completely soaked in blood. Baylor Plano would say that at that point he failed to meet their standards and would permanently revoke his surgical privileges, and would try to initiate a peer review, but at that time Christopher Duntsch would resign. And because he had resigned due to avoid a termination, and because he resigned, Baylor Plano made a deal that they would write a letter saying that there were no problems with him. And they kind of figured because he had resigned, they didn't have to notify the National Practitioner Data Bank. The National Practitioner Data Bank, or NPDB, is a database made by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Resources to basically make a list of malpractice or doctors that have basically failed to meet the standards of a doctor. And under normal circumstances, a hospital would actually have to basically send a review of Christopher Duntsch, but because he had resigned, they didn't really feel the need to notify them at this point in time. At this point in time, Christopher Duntsch would begin working at Dallas Medical Center at Farmers Branch. Their Dallas Medical would actually give him temporary surgical privileges until they could get a full review from Baylor Plano. And within his first week, he would operate on 2 patients, Mary Efford and Floella Brown. During the surgery with Brown, he would actually sever the vertebral artery and would completely ignore the clear signs of massive blood loss. He would eventually pack the area with too much substance, and because of this, she would actually have a stroke because of the blood loss and his malpractice. And after the surgery, Duntsch would not contact the hospital till hours later. He would then schedule an effective surgery on Mary Efford instead of caring for his former patient, Floella Brown. And the hospital was completely exasperated for the fact that he refused to care for his patient and refused to delay the surgery on Mary Efford. He would then later suggest that they have another surgery on Brown to where they would drill a hole inside of her skull to relieve a lot of pressure. The hospital would completely restrict him from that type of surgery. One, because he did not have the authority to actually perform a surgery like that, and they did not at the hospital have the equipment to do such a surgery. Duntsch would try to relocate Brown, but at that point she became clinically brain dead, and her family would shortly after take her off life support. During the surgery with Efford, he would sever a spinal cord on her back during that surgery, and again, it was not even in the right side of her back that needed surgery. He would operate on the complete opposite side of her back. He would then screw another screw into another nerve and would also leave 2 holes in her spinal cord. Other co-workers assisting with the surgery would try to assist Christopher Duntsch and tell him that he was making clear mistakes and was operating on the wrong part, and even had to stop him from operating further because he was attempting to put a screw in the muscle part of her back instead of the bone. Because of this botched surgery, Efford would actually be left paralyzed because of all the mistakes. Efford would later recall waking up in excruciating pain and would also claim that she had a feeling that Christopher Duntsch was intoxicated because his pupils were extremely dilated. They would get longtime surgeon Robert Henderson to do a salvage surgery on Efford. He would record his surgery when he would open up and see what Christopher Duntsch had done, and he was completely shocked, and at this point was completely convinced that Christopher Duntsch was an imposter trying to play a part as a surgeon. He would say that clearly no doctor would have this much lack of knowledge of the human anatomy. He would refer to Christopher Duntsch's surgery as a child playing with Tinkerton toys or an erector set. And because Henderson did not believe that Christopher Duntsch had actually graduated from the University of Tennessee, he would take his picture and forward it to the college to make sure that he had actually graduated from there. And his former teachers would respond back that yes, he did attend the University of Tennessee and that's where he got his doctorate. But during his investigation, he would find out the reason why Christopher Duntsch was sent to the program for impaired physicians and would learn about his addiction to cocaine. And even though these surgeries went catastrophically wrong, they still did not report Christopher Duntsch to the National Practitioners Data Bank, as their reasoning at that hospital was he only had temporary privileges and law did not require them to report him at that time. Christopher Duntsch would leave Dallas and work at a variety of different hospitals, all botching surgeries and leaving people completely maimed. Henderson would eventually read about a woman by the name of Jacqueline Troy who went under surgery, and during her surgery it was botched so badly that it completely severed her vocal cords. He had heard that she was damaged so badly that she couldn't even speak, only above a whisper. So he would pay a visit and talk to Miss Troy, and he would ask her, "Is the man who operated and botched your surgery, is his name Christopher Duntsch?" To where she would look up and she would say yes. Duntsch would then operate on a man by the name of Jeff Glidewell, and he would perform a surgery on his neck and even operated on a big portion of his neck, almost mistaking the muscle in his neck for a tumor. Might I also add, from this surgery, it was botched so badly that it nearly decapitated Jeff. They would eventually call in Randall Kirby to do another surgery on Jeff Glidewell to repair the damages. He would later testify that when he opened up where Duntsch had operated, it looked like the work of a crazed maniac. It was at this point that Kirby referred to Duntsch as a sociopath and would even go and make statements that was very clear that Christopher Duntsch tried to kill this man and almost decapitated him. He would actually write a paper to the Texas Medical Board and would say that Christopher Duntsch was a sociopath and was a clear and present danger to the citizens of Texas. And because of heavy lobbying from Henderson and Kirby, the Texas State Medical Board would actually suspend Christopher Duntsch's surgical privileges and his license on June 26, 2013. Many board members would later testify that they found it extremely hard to believe that a surgeon like Duntsch could be as incompetent as he was. They would also, and by they I mean Kirby and Henderson, really fight hard to revoke his license because their biggest fear was him applying at a different hospital and hurting or killing someone else, and they would completely revoke that license on December 6, 2013. It was at this point that they began gathering information from all his botched surgeries to see that they could actually criminally charge him for all of his botched surgeries. It was around this time that mother of his children and girlfriend, Young, would actually leave Christopher Dunched.